What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome into another edition of the NFL Weekly, looking at week number 7. My goodness, how time has flown. We're almost 2 months into the NFL season. Seems like just yesterday we were breaking down the divisions in the offseason, but we are getting deep into this season. We're starting to figure out who stands where, in terms of where they're at in the standings. To help me break it all down, we should have Coach with us later, but with me right now, as always, is Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. Mr. Martinez, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you? It's a great day in Southern California, day off of work. And, before we get too far into this, if you have listened to us through last year and this year, every now and then I mention a name of a very good friend who does radio up in Los Angeles. And I just want to send good thoughts out to him. He had to go under the knife today for a medical procedure. And I can say that because he was very vocal about it on social media. But to Frank Kramer, my buddy, and Frank Army, as we all, that's his group that follows him. We wish you nothing but the best and success, and hope to hear you back on the air real soon.
Amen. Yeah, hopefully get well. Health first and foremost, and then hopefully he can get back to doing what he loves and what everyone loves to hear or listen to him do. So thank you for starting it off that way. We, unfortunately, of course, we're not with you last week's schedules. It happens. But we did have, obviously, some big news come out. Of course, with the Las Vegas Raiders, we are definitely not breaking any news to you by letting you know that Jon Gruden has been relieved of duties from the Las Vegas Raiders. Not really performance-based, at least totally, but nonetheless, he is no longer the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Obviously, you weren't a big fan of Jon Gruden, but that was kind of what he had done leading up to this on the field. This was not that situation. What are your thoughts looking ahead for the Raiders and everything that happened with Jon Gruden?
Quite honestly, before this ever went down as a resignation, like anything you see in politics and in the media, there had to be some investigation already taking place of which Gruden was aware. Now, with that said, the organization also had to be aware. This just didn't all of a sudden materialize overnight. And with that, my thought is, I think, one, that was a very big distraction for him because he knew once it hit what the repercussion was going to be. Can you be a successful coach? Some guys maybe, but I don't think Gruden could. And as I've said in other times prior to this and prior to his resignation, when you look back at the history of Jon Gruden, when he left the Raiders the first time, he was barely a 500 coach. When he finished his tenure in Tampa Bay, he was barely a 500 coach. His first 3 seasons back of turning this program around, they were not a 500 team. Sometimes you just need to have a new captain to steer the ship. And I think this is probably the best thing that could have happened for the Raiders. And again, you kind of have to look past the gloss and the high figures and the hype. And there was a lot of hype that went along with Jon Gruden. And sometimes I was part of that. I was all happy with Jon Gruden back in 2000, but it's been 21 years since then, since they had their heyday, 18 years. And so Jon Gruden, what's going to happen to him after this, I don't know, but you brought up and made me aware of a story that we're going to talk of in just a little while involving a quarterback. So will it surprise me to see Gruden back on in an announcer's booth and people getting on his side saying, oh, it's okay, it was a bad rap, or, it was unjust, it was uncalled for? Of course there will be. And decisions aside by the NFL or by Jon Gruden, it is what it is. Let's move forward. They showed what they could do. They overcame some adversity from the locker room standpoint, and these guys pulled together. So now it's just all about Raider football.
Yeah. And just a heads up, a little betting update. Jon Gruden is currently 100-1 to be the next coach at LSU next year. Just throwing that out there if you want to waste some money. I would not be terribly surprised, but at the same time, I think right now you kind of got to, he may coach again, but I don't think it will be anytime soon, maybe 3 or 4 years from now, when, everything else is, I guess somewhat settled down. But I think for the Raiders, I don't think they had a choice. Now, the irony in all of this, at least I believe, is this all stemmed from a investigation into the Washington football team and their handling Bruce Allen and things like that. Now, obviously, this was a correspondence between John Gruden and Bruce Allen with these, obviously homophobic slurs, misogynistic slurs, and everything, pretty much in between. Losing his job is the ultimate, whatever, punishment, if you will. In this situation, I think the Raiders did what they had to do. I don't believe, they could have continued on like this. But you brought it up, the fact that they were able to go to Mile High this past weekend. Now, once again, this is a football podcast. We brought it up, in terms of the social ramifications, you could probably go to some other podcast and they'll break that down a little bit more. But for what happened on the football field, I didn't have a ton of confidence in the Raiders this past week. And how could you? They weren't exactly lighting the world on fire on what they did on the field. And then the off the field stuff had begun to seep into that as well. They came out, they took care of business, and got the job done. Now, they're going to have a bit of a test this week. We'll get to that as both of our teams are going head to head, the Eagles and the Raiders. We'll get to that game in a bit. So you do kind of wonder, how that's going to go for the Raiders. They'll be back at home, but they have a guy in, is it Rich Bisaccia? Am I getting that pronunciation correct? Perfect. Okay. So, so he's been around. I don't think he's ever been a head coach, but he's been, an assistant for quite some time. I think they're in good hands. They just got to get the play on the field under control. And I think they'll be just fine. Everything. Look, winning cures all. Let's be honest. In this country, winning cures all. And if they go out and keep winning, we're not going to talk about some of the other stuff as much. So moving on to the games that are going to be played on the field this next week, week number 7, we will start as always on Thursday Night Football. It will be halfway in the AFC West. The Denver Broncos, a team that started 3-0, have lost 3 in a row. They will head to Cleveland, who are in a bit of a tailspin of their own. At the moment, Cleveland is 3-point favorites. Cleveland will not be starting Baker Mayfield. It will be Case Keenum. The line opened at Cleveland -6. It's gone all the way down to Cleveland -3. The over-under here is 42.5. Raider Jim, Thursday Night Football. What are your thoughts? Denver heading to Cleveland.
This is an interesting game. And, I heard some people say, Cleveland's having trouble. Cleveland's not that good. Look what Arizona did to them. Well, Arizona's going to do that to pretty much anybody, I think. What a game. They're just having a great season. But I think for Denver to go into Cleveland after the game that they had to play on Sunday, that was a physical game. It was a tough game. Mentally, it took a lot out of them, I'm sure, because they probably were smiling in the locker room before the game thinking, we got this one. Raiders, that they're off balance. They're out of kilter right now. And that was not the case. And I think they really, you could say in a sense, they probably feel like they just got sucker punched to get the offensive show that they did from Derek Carr and the boys. So I don't think it's going to be much of a contest tomorrow for Cleveland to come in and win -3. And I think it's even going to go over the 42.5, might move it down to 42. But still, I think there's going to be some points on the board. You saw what happened. Denver and the Raiders, they put up some points, which I didn't really expect. But if they could do that with the Raiders, they'll do it with Cleveland too. And I still think Cleveland covers.
Yeah, the spread's a little difficult. The Case Keenum effect. Of all the backups out there, he at the very least he does have that experience. He's been around the block. An average quarterback. Maybe get a little bit more out of him. It's going to be interesting. I do like the over 42.5. I think a lot of times on these Thursday games, the defenses kind of play it safe. They don't have a ton of opportunity to, install a great defensive game plan in, 48 hours. especially in a situation where now you're dealing with Case Keenum as opposed to Baker Mayfield. Both of these teams, or at least Cleveland, look, the Chubb situation, him being out is tough. Obviously, Baker being out. The Cleveland's got their injury issues, but I do expect to see this game go over. And then the fact, look, if the line is telling us anything, you might be able to wait it out and maybe get Cleveland -2, -2.5. That might be a little bit better than Cleveland -3, but I really do like the over 42. So moving on to the other game in the AFC West that neither of our teams are dealing with, but it is Kansas City at Tennessee. The Kansas City Chiefs are 5.5-point favorites. The over under here is 56.5. I did some looking up at the weather that's expected. It's going to be about 70 to 75. Rain and thunderstorms are expected. I'll start this one off. It's a little difficult to bet against Tennessee right now. Derrick Henry is a cheat code. That man, 250 pounds, running the way he does. It's I don't know how you can strap those chin straps in and willingly say, I'm going to take this guy on in the open field by myself. It's a scary proposition. I like Tennessee plus 5.5 here. Kansas City hasn't been amazing. And the biggest thing that I struggle with Kansas City is their defense. Their defense has been a liability really for the last few years. They were able to weather the storm, with the Mahomes effect. Well, guess what? Patrick Mahomes has struggled. He's turning the ball over. The whole team is turning the ball over at a kind of a ridiculous pace. I like Tennessee 5.5 here. I know 56.5 is a big number here, but I also really like the over here as well. You do have two explosive offenses. Obviously, Tennessee, not the normal explosive offense, but when you have a running back like Derrick Henry, who's I think 10 career runs of over 60 yards. I mean, that is a home run hitter right there. So a very good opportunity to go over here. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Kansas City heading to Tennessee.
Yeah, every week it seems like there's one more game or a couple more games that when I look at Vegas Insider or some of the prognosticators who get paid to do this as opposed to what you and I do, we're doing it for fun. And when you can see these two teams head to head, and you can give me Tennessee plus 5.5 at home, it just makes me shake my head. There's no way that Tennessee will not cover this one. Said it early on before the season ever started. Don't be surprised, folks. Kansas City's not going to rule the West like they have the last few seasons. The tide's turning. It could have been any one of the three teams. It just happens that right now it's Denver, it's the Chargers and the Raiders up top. But Kansas City, at 3-3, wow, that's a real shocker. So I like Tennessee in this one all night long at 5.5 plus 5.5. And I do also like the over. It could be a back and forth thing. The only thing that makes me hesitant is Kansas City going to bring out a defensive scheme that really, really challenges Mahomes into making some mistakes. I'm just reading right now, apparently Clyde Edwards-Helaire is out.
Yeah.
He's been placed on injured reserve, so he's out for at least 3 games. That doesn't help Kansas City's cause at all.
I think one of their biggest problems as well is the run game has just been a non-factor in that situation for a team that, maybe not as conventionally as normal. They've always been a team that can at least run the ball one way or another. Maybe not the run the ball right down your throat type of thing, but they'll get their yards one way or another. Hasn't been the case this year. And like I said, against Tennessee, if you're going to turn the ball over like that, you're going to need a little bit better ball possession. I don't see that happening. And once again, 5.5 point you're giving me for Tennessee at home. I will take that all day. But moving on to obviously the game that both of us are going to be heavily focused on this weekend, the Philadelphia Eagles heading to Las Vegas. And this is my moment to kind of shake my hand at the cloud in the sky saying, if it wasn't for the ridiculous ticket prices there at Allegiant Stadium, myself and Raider Jim would be enjoying that one live. But I think $350 for nosebleeds is not going to be a possibility for us. So, or at least for me. And it's a situation where, as we were talking about before, more in relation to the Breeders' Cup, but sometimes it's a little better to just enjoy it at home. And that's what we'll be doing this weekend. But One of us will enjoy it. I kind of feel like I know who it is, but Raider Jim, I'm going to give you the honors to get us started on this. The Raiders are 3-point favorites. The over-under is 49.
Yeah, and just for the heck of it, I just happened to look up ticket prices before we came on, and apparently there are some upper level seats for $180.
Oh,
And then I also have a friend of mine who went to, he's a Raider fan, and he went to SoFi for the Monday night game or Thursday night, whenever they played the Chargers up there a couple weeks ago, and he was able to get in for face value.
wow.
So they're out there, it's what's the gambler in you, and how much time do you really have to run up to Vegas and run back again to San Diego? That's the whole ticket. But they are out there apparently for $180. The game itself, wow. I go back and forth with Philadelphia. It's almost another one. It's like watching the Raiders, because you don't know what team's really going to show up. I thought by now Raiders are 4-2. That's great. Should Raiders be 5-1? Yeah, I think they should be. But then they just fell flat for a while, and they were scrambling for everything. But at home, with this resurgence in confidence, and maybe, unfortunately, it was Gruden that was the distraction, not Antonio Brown, or not anybody on the offensive line, or not anybody like that. Maybe it was Gruden all this time that was his head just wasn't really into it, and therefore he wasn't putting together the proper game plans. So I think we're going to see Vegas come out and put together another good offensive show, as they did last week. Philadelphia's secondary is going to be a little tougher to penetrate, but I think they'll be able to do it. I would take the Raiders on the -3. I'll take over all day long, because I think there's going to be some number. The Raider defense played better, but they just give up points. And so now they're doing almost Air Coryell type stuff. Let's see who's going to have the ball last, and let's just try to at least let's get that 2-touchdown lead, and we'll take it from there and hope we can hang on.
Yeah. In terms of, I'll start with the Raiders, because I do think the Raiders win this game, as frustrating as it is. But the gambler, the unbiased guy in me, you can't look at these two teams and think that Philadelphia can go on the road and get the job done in this environment. I don't see it happening, especially what we saw from the Raiders last week. The biggest issue, or no, I'm sorry, let me leave the Eagles for a moment. But for the Raiders, I was really not only impressed with the fact that obviously all the kind of off the field BS that was dealt with prior to the Denver game, but this was a team that normally when we see the Raiders, it seems like over the last 3 years, really when the Gruden situation has been, once he's been around, they've gotten hot early, and then something will happen. They'll stub their toe and it turns into a broken leg. And they that one kind of, oh, that was a tough break, turns into a 5 or 6 game losing streak, and it's tough. And I think we all kind of expected that this past week. I mean, it was a 12-day stretch for the Raiders where they went from being undefeated, and then 12 days later were 3-2 and lost their head coach. I mean, that's a hell of a swing. And they were able to go once again 2 Mile High on the road in their biggest, rivalry game at the moment, and got the job done in impressive fashion, especially in the second half. So, kudos to them. They get the job done. They get to come home. Excuse me. But for the Eagles now going on the road in a situation where they're taking on a team, they faced the Buccaneers last week, and thank goodness for these absolutely erroneous times to go for 2. Look, I don't care what the analytics say or whatever. If you score a touchdown, it's 28-20, and you trot your extra point or your kicker out there. That's what you're supposed to do. Don't go for 2 down 8. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. It worked out for the better in me. I had the Eagles plus 6.5, and they ended up getting it done with the erroneous 2-point conversion. Later on in the weekend, it would struggle. It would come back to bite me on an over-under. But still, these moments where Nick Sirianni just seems like he wants to be the smartest guy in the room. And for me, he just needs to get in the room. This is an offense right now that is atrocious. Miles Sanders has carried the ball 4 times in the last 2 halves or first halves. That is a joke. This is a team that is built to run the football, and they refuse to run the football. I know Tampa Bay is really good against the run, but you have to at least try. You have to at least try and keep this team honest. This team refuses to do it. And to make matters worse, they don't have a vertical passing game. They run these bubble screens, and it blows up in their face every single time. Devonta Smith has been really good, but he's also struggled because of the route pairings that they run him with. The Eagles, in my mind, are on their way out. Obviously, 12 hours after the loss to Tampa Bay, they trade away another big piece to the Super Bowl run. That was Zach Ertz. He's been sent to Arizona for a 5th round pick and a defensive back who apparently, he's not just some throw in here. I don't know too much about him, but I've heard some good things about him. We'll see how that goes. For the Eagles, though, run the football. I mean, how many times have you ever seen in the third quarter, a fourth quarter of a game where a team's down 18 points and the coach runs the football and the crowd goes crazy, folks? They went crazy. It was a sarcastic cheer of almost to go, oh my God, of all the times to run it, now's the time. But hey, at least you ran it. Nick Sirianni has to get this figured out or he will be out, because look, the people of Philadelphia are not going to wait around for him to figure it out, especially when everyone is in unison saying run the football. So once again, unless something crazy changes, what I've seen, the old eye test, it's going to be Vegas covering the 3. And like I said, going with the over, because if there's one thing the Eagles can do, it is a backdoor cover to go over on something, unless, of course, they're forced into, the other team kneeling like we saw this past week. There was a lot of people first and goal and the Tampa Bay kneels on it to save the under. So that was a win for me. But moving on to the Monday Night Football game. Actually, no, you know what? We are going to hold that off. To hold off until hopefully coach comes in, because it is the Saints. But we are moving on to Carolina at the Giants. Currently, the Giants are currently the Panthers are 3-point favorites. The over-under here is 43. No weather really to speak of. This is a tough one for me. Sam Darnold has taken big time steps back. He's thrown 6 interceptions in the last 3 weeks after the, quote unquote revival of Sam Darnold. That has not been the case for him. He's struggled even obviously against the Eagles. I think he threw 3 interceptions, struggled again last week. They are 3-3 after starting 3-0. The Giants are not really in any bit of a better spot. This is a team that is it's so bad. Every week there's some new drama, something coming out. Joe Judge is he's a dead man walking at this point. He's got to be the odds-on favorite to be the first coach fired, maybe without Dan Campbell, but we'll get to the Lions later. The Giants get absolutely demolished on the road. Another little they got demolished at home. But another frustration for me, you're down 38-3. The over-under is 49. You score a touchdown, and then you go for 2 with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Just kick the extra point, keep the under for us bettors. It's so frustrating sometimes, but they end up going for 2 to make it a 27-point loss instead of a 28-point loss. It is what it is. My frustrations, I'll take that over there. But I would have to say Carolina, does cover this somewhat, but I'm not going to bet it. I do like the under 43 here. No Christian McCaffrey. Carolina has been struggling offensively really since the first half of the Eagles game. Had a great, comeback in the second half of last week's game against Minnesota, but fell short late. And then the Giants offense is a dumpster fire. It's not going to be good. So I do like the under here. Once again, I'm not going to play the spread, but if I had to, I'd say give me Carolina, maybe bet it down or, bet it down to 2.5, something like that. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Carolina heading to New York to face the Giants.
Yeah, Giants are just a train wreck. They haven't won yet at home, which is one thing to keep in mind. Carolina 3-3. And you're right, they have struggled. But again, if you need a game where you're going to start to look good again, might as well be against the Giants. There's a confidence booster. So I think Carolina gets this one, and I'm with you. -3, that's almost on that borderline there. So maybe you go money line on this game. And it might, I don't think it's going to go down to 2.5. Nothing's going to happen to change that. It might go up. But if it stays at 3, you might want to look at money line on it. But I'm with you, under 43, because I can see this one ending up 27-14. And guess what? That's only 41 points.
Yeah.
So they can win handily. But I don't see the Giants coming out and being the offensive juggernaut that's going to put up 30 points or 20 points. It's not going to be a shootout.
Yeah. And Carolina's defense has struggled, but they got some players on that team early on. I think heading into the Eagles game, they were actually the second rated defense overall. Obviously, once again, the last few weeks haven't, derailed them, but also haven't been, they're not going on their highlight field either. But as you said, nothing better to kind of get back in the driver's seat than facing Joe Judge's boys and those New York Giants who they're not very good. Let's be honest. Speaking of not very good, it's been a heck of a week for the Miami Dolphins. You go to London, and luckily for them, at least most of the West Coast didn't watch that 6:30 a.m. start for us here on the West Coast. A little too early for me. But at the end of the day, we all saw the final kick from Jacksonville. Urban Meyer finally gets his win. The Miami Dolphins lose to the Jaguars. They are 1-5. To make matters worse for Dolphin fans, but fantastic for Eagles fans, is the Eagles own the Dolphins' first round pick. Once again, for us Eagles fans, we're kind of just like, it is what it is, because if the Colts continue to struggle, we struggle, Dolphins struggle. 3 top 10 picks, hopefully. And yes, that is not the last time you will hear me remind you of that. But for the Dolphins, the big news that has come out today, as we record October 20th here on a Wednesday, is news that it is expected before the trade deadline on November 2nd. And I've seen this from multiple sources. This isn't, one person, multiple sources saying that Deshaun Watson could be heading to Miami in part of a 3-team trade that would send Tua to Washington. Folks, I have no idea how, why, or this is literally coming after a week, 10 days after John Gruden was fired for his actions. And there's a team that's going to go out and give away their quote unquote franchise quarterback to bring in Deshaun Watson and all of his baggage. Once again, I know we are only a football podcast, but we are going to have to admit that the PR nightmare that would come with that would be just, it'd be very difficult to sell yourself to the fans, let alone the female fans of the Dolphins, to say, this is our new franchise quarterback. Don't worry about in the offseason. He's probably going to be on trial for something that could put him away for a very long time. So before you give us your pick on the Dolphins that are currently 2.5-point underdogs at home against Atlanta. The over-under is 47. But what are your thoughts on this news of, I guess, the quarterback swap and the Dolphins making a move for Deshaun Watson?
Yeah, without taking the position of pontificating, you and I also do a podcast and talk a lot about horse racing, and there have been times stories have surfaced about the evil doings that you can see behind the scenes, horses being doped, jockeys using electronic devices. We've covered all of it within the last 12 months. And we scratch our heads when a horse wins the Kentucky Derby, and then all of a sudden all that gets put into jeopardy. And along with it being unscrupulous, the other thing that bothers both of us is the fact that what about the guys like you and me whose horse came in second, and all they say to you for that is like, well, what about my money then? Because if my horse technically won because that guy's a cheater, all the cheaters got paid off. All the people who bet on the cheater got paid off. And so it kind of makes you step back and take assessment and say, wow, is this really something? And sometimes in the NFL, it's the same thing, be it dog fighting, be it multiple drug offenses, be it ill conduct off the field. Supposedly there's an NFL code of conduct, but I don't know what that really means. I listened to Keyshawn Johnson go on and on and on and just railing on John Gruden, and that is his point. And as long as all these guys can tell me they have never uttered anything like that towards one another in the locker room, okay, I understand why you're so vocal about it. You're also a liar, probably. So, it's really a shame. I don't understand the ownership of the Miami Dolphin doing this to the organization, doing this to the team. It is a disrespect to the female fans, to the fans in general, and to the entire locker room. Why would you do that? If the Raiders would have, if Mark Davis would have come out and simply said, oh, well, that was a long time ago, we still stand by Coach Gruden. Nope, there's a lot of the Raider Nation that would have not been happy with that. And so no, I think it's a real bad move on the part of the Dolphins to even have the press that they're thinking about it. Terrible.
Yeah, the fact that they haven't kind of come out. I mean, obviously, the fact that this news has been out for at least 3 or 4 hours. If this was erroneous, and you're the Dolphins, you would think the first thing that would be on the docket would be this is not true. Now, whether you're believed or not, that's another story. But we haven't heard anything. I haven't heard anything from them. And as you said, this is a situation where it's beyond football. I've talked about it multiple times. The Houston Texans are a bad football team, but you know what? I think they're doing the right thing. They've done the right thing.
Yeah.
They know that if they release Deshaun Watson, they could be up for, union, being in trouble with the union. They understand that. So what they've done is they've sat Deshaun Watson down. They've made him inactive. They've continued to pay him. Now, that's something down the road they could maybe take back, but they've continued to pay him the $17 million this year to essentially not do anything. They very well could say, you know what, we're going to start this guy, put it in the NFL's hands. We want to compete. They have not done that. And as I said, I commend them for that. They're not going to win very many games, but they've taken that high road and said, you know what, David Mills is our quarterback because you know what, he doesn't have 21 counts of sexual assault. And if we go 2-15 because of that, we go 2-15. And here come the Dolphins go, hey, we'll take a chance on him. I mean, as an Eagle fan, the best news I can get from this is that we're not the team that goes and gets him, because there was a lot of talk that the Eagles were sniffing around. But this was before all this stuff came out. So for the Dolphins, it's a terrible look that's already compounded a week in which, once again, you were Urban Meyer's first scalp. I mean, that's something that's tough. I will say, though, London is the only place that Jacksonville has actually a home field advantage. There are a lot more fans in London of the Jaguars than there are anywhere else. And yes, that is a shot to the fans of Jacksonville, but you can't really blame them. They've all been Dolphin fans pretty much their whole lives. And, it's not the best, easiest team to follow. But for the game that's going to be at hand this weekend, Raider Jim, ironically, the line actually opened up at Miami -3. It is now Atlanta -2.5. So a big move there. The weather will be 80 with rain expected all day. But what are your thoughts? Atlanta 2.5-point favorites, 47.5 being the over-under.
It's another one of those games where if you needed a game where you could continue to start regrouping and gathering your momentum, this one's all in favor of Atlanta. This is going to be a great game. Atlanta covers the 2.5, no problem. So 47.5, the over under. My only concern with that is the rain all day long. That's what I get it. Everybody wears gloves these days to catch a football. Nobody's Fred Biletnikoff anymore, where you just go out, you play barehanded. Everybody wears gloves now. So I know that will help a bit, but for the quarterbacks to be able to drop back in a driving rain and grab that ball and get the right trajectory, et cetera, on it could be different. So I will take Atlanta -2.5, but I think I would go maybe bump it up a half and say under 48. But Miami, wow, that I feel bad for those fans. It's a better organization than that, historically speaking.
It really is. We're not talking about, I can't even really think any off the top of my head. I mean, every franchise, not every, but some franchises have had some bad run of things and, unfortunate situations. but this obviously is really rough, and then compounded by the fact of, Deshaun Watson possibly coming into the mix. I agree with you fully on this game. I also would encourage you, if you're listening right now, pause this podcast, go put this in now, because this could be a runaway train. This could get up to Atlanta -5.5. If it's moved 5.5 points in 48 hours, 72 hours, the closer we get to game time, the more, I guess, fuel you want to throw onto this fire that this story is coming into. That, once again, this could be a runaway train, and before you know it, Atlanta's 6-point favorites, and that might be a bit much for that. So I would say definitely pop that in now, but I agree. This is a game, Atlanta -2.5 and the under. I just think also too, because the offenses are kind of sluggish, obviously the rain will play a part in that. And then, of course, there will be other people that say, oh, well, you might see the sloppy game turn into a bit of a defenders losing their balance, things like that, and big plays. I will say I don't think it's a very a downpour, a monsoon situation. I just think we'll see some showers throughout the day, according to good old Google. So, send all your hate mail to Google if it's a beautiful day in Miami and there's absolutely no weather. They'll be happy to read it and get back to you. But moving on to Chicago, heading to Tampa. This is another big time mismatch. Not the biggest spread of the weekend, but close. It is Tampa Bay -12.5. 47 is the over under. It'll be very warm, 80 to 90 with 60% humidity down there in Tampa. As we get ready to dive into fall. But for this one, I'll get this one started. Obviously, Tampa Bay, 12.5-point favorites facing Chicago. Just a heartbreaker. It seemed like it was destined that this was the time the Bears were finally going to beat Aaron Rodgers. And my goodness, say what you want about Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, he is the heel of the NFL. He is the bad guy of the NFL. He relishes it. And you know what? Like I said, I've said multiple times as a wrestling fan growing up, I respect the heel. I respect the bad guy. I respect staying in character. And the I own you. I still bleeping own you to the fans. That's peak heel, folks. That is the peak bad guy. But for the Bears, more importantly, they're stumbling. They're trying to figure things out. I think the biggest question mark for them, obviously, can they score points and be able to stick around with Tampa Bay? Now, look, myself personally, I'm not touching the spread. 12.5 points. That's a lot, folks, in the NFL, and we've seen it covered plenty of times. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's covered today or this weekend. I myself not going to put too much credence into it. I do like the under 47 though here. Once again, I just don't like Chicago's offense, and I love Tampa Bay's defense. I think Chicago's best chance is to, run the football, try and find a way to get a run game going. Well, guess what? The last team you want to do that against, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I like the under here. We'll see how it goes. But once again, 12.5, that's a lot for me to kind of look at, even with Brady and all those weapons that they have. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Tampa Bay -12.5.
Well, you brought up the guy that I was going to use in this little segment about the game. What do you say about Brady and Rodgers? These are two guys who just, everything that goes on around them, everything that gets said about them, good, bad, or indifferent. These are two guys that have really, they are exemplary, and everybody any up and coming football player should watch them, because they just don't give a damn. They focus on what they need to do. I got work to do. I've got a performance I got to do. I've got to do this. So you guys just keep talking. I'm going to go play football. And look at the records of these two teams and where they're headed to again. It's going to be the next big showdown. And Chicago, God bless Chicago. What do you say about them? They're 1-2 on the road, which is not going to serve well for them. That means they don't play well. Tampa Bay, on the other hand, hasn't lost at home. They're 3-0 at home. So this one, I'm with you. We're dead on this one. I don't like the spread. I'm not going to touch the spread on this one. And I don't think I like the over on this one, because I think Tampa Bay is just going to have their way on the line with Chicago, and they're going to keep Chicago at bay. So,
yeah, I think the only way if this goes over is if we see Tampa in the high 30s. You know, and then
correct.
even then we might not see enough out of Chicago to get the job done. But it's going to be interesting once again. These 12.5 point spreads, things like that. Too many things can happen for that backdoor cover. Bruce Arians up 17 with 2 minutes to go, doesn't really care about whether or not he wins that game by 17 or 10, you know. So just keep that in mind for that one. Moving on to a battle of two of our former colleagues. I can't wait to see the Twitter exchange. If we see one this weekend, of course, our old friend, the Pope of the podcast, the Craig Mizrak, his Bengals facing off against Dr. Steve's Baltimore Ravens. Should be a very interesting game, and I think really for me a measuring stick for the Cincinnati Bengals. It's going to be interesting. Baltimore 6-point favorites at home. The over/under is 47. No weather really being a factor here. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on Cincinnati at Baltimore?
I'll go one more half point, and I'm going to take Cincinnati plus 6.5 on this one. Cincinnati is A, playing some pretty decent ball. B, they're healthy. They have nobody banged up, dinged up, and they're coming to make a statement. Baltimore, what do you say? They're 5-1. And granted, I saw what they did to the new kid on the block. They took care of business last week against the Chargers. But I don't think that's going to be the case this week. I think it's going to be a great game, high-scoring game. Cincinnati covers, and this one's going to go over 47. I think this is going to be a hell of a fun game to watch.
I agree. I kind of go the opposite way, and it might be the recency bias. The way that Baltimore is playing, and now Lamar Jackson has been really good. He was, maybe one of the best games we've ever seen from an individual. 2 Monday Night Footballs ago or Sunday Night Football, whatever it was, where he had something like 500 yards of total offense, something like that. I mean, video game stuff. And he came back last week and they dominated, but it wasn't that style. I mean, they got the job done, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't the oh my God, Lamar did it again. He is going to be in the MVP conversation, as he should be. But I agree with you on Cincinnati. I think they're making turns. If this game was in Cincinnati, I think I'd view it a little differently. I think Baltimore is on a bit of a run that they see a bit of an opening in that NFC or that AFC North. That with Cleveland sputtering, and then the Steelers, they're sputtering as well, doing what they always seem to do. They look at the Cincinnati Bengals as, look, if we can punch these guys in the mouth and dominate here, we can start thinking about week 16, 17, 18, Lamar sitting down, things like that. They might be looking way too far ahead, but they know if they can stock up these wins. I like it. Now, once again, I kind of want to go back the other way. I want to take about a half point. I want to see Baltimore minus 5.5. I do think it will be somewhat close. I'm all on the over, though. I think we're going to see a lot of points being scored. Yeah, and because I do believe the Baltimore defense is good. I don't think they were nearly as good as they showed. I think the Chargers, no matter what, they don't play well back east. It doesn't matter who it is. They've always struggled in the 10 a.m. time slot on the East Coast. They've always done that. Always struggled. So wasn't a huge surprise to see them kind of scuff and not look like that team that we saw the week before. Cincinnati, they're not going to have that problem. I expect to see a very, very good game, but I think at the end of the day, Baltimore's offense just is a little more consistent, a little more weapons. And I think they are able to cover hopefully 5.5 if I can get it there, maybe 6, but I am all over the over. I think we are going to see this game, really, really open up, especially early on, as both teams try and get rolling. But moving on.
And real interesting,
Yep.
One more thing. I'm looking up here, and if I hit the right button on my computer, yeah, I do. I'm on the right urinal. Cincinnati's got the number 5 defense right now. Cincinnati's defense, now granted, they have not had to play Lamar Jackson. And that's a very important variable when I make that statement. But they do something right, and that's what's been keeping them in the games. And 4-2, that's very respectable. So going to be interesting. Like I say, you and I both agree, this is going to be one fun game.
Yeah. If you get a chance, check this one out. Like I said, I think you're going to see obviously two very good young quarterbacks. And I think for Joe Burrow, it might be he might look at this as, hey, this will be my chance to kind of step into that realm, or at least take a step towards it.
Absolutely.
We all expect Lamar to do what he's going to do. And Joe Burrow, I think we haven't seen yet. And I don't know if 500 total yards of offense is really totally his game, but he can very well be an elite quarterback here very soon. And today or this weekend could be a step towards that. So moving on to another matchup in the NFC, it is the Washington football team at the Green Bay Packers. Packers are as hot as anybody in football right now. They are 9.5-point favorites. 49 is the over/under. It is in Green Bay. No weather to be expected. It'll be about 50 degrees, no rain or anything like that. Myself personally, look, I think we saw what we've seen from Taylor Heineke has been good to start and has taken a couple steps back. I've always been a big believer. I guess I need to get this copyrighted, but I'm going to call it the Austin Davis effect. And I always bring up the Austin Davis. About 4 or 5 years ago, he came in and played for the Rams. No one had any film on the guy. He had 4 weeks where he looked like he was the resurrection of Kurt Warner. He was going to have a movie made after him. He's a fantastic player. Well, guess what? They get film on him and they figure him out very quickly. He can't adjust. 3 weeks later, he's out of the league. I don't know if that's going to be the case for Taylor Heineke, but it is kind of that's what we're looking at right now. First 3 or 4 games looked amazing. He has struggled since. And I tried to find a correlation. I tried to find like, oh, hey, you know what? He threw the ball 48 times last week. Well, you know what? He threw the ball a lot week 2, and he played pretty darn well too. So that wasn't the case there. Like I said, I really do think the film is getting out on him. And I firmly believe if you want to get the best out of Aaron Rodgers, you just got to talk smack to him. And this is to anybody. You could just, I'm pretty sure he is so vain that he reads every single Twitter about him. You know what I mean? And he uses that to fire him up. And, good for him because you can tell he plays with a chip on his shoulder, always has, and it works for him. You might not like him, but you better respect him because he is one of the best ever. He's going to go into Canton one day. And, as Tom Brady said on some podcast, he congratulated him on being a minority owner of the Chicago Bears, of course, in reference to the I own you chants or the I own you thing. So very, very interesting. But I like Green Bay here to cover. I just think 2 teams going in opposite directions. It's at home in Green Bay. The over under 49. I'm actually going to take the under here. I struggle to kind of see how Washington can kind of score with this team. And I believe early on, Green Bay is going to get out in front early. It's going to force Taylor Heineke to throw the ball all over the field. That is not his forte. I think we'll see some more mistakes out of him and keeps Washington off the scoreboard. But I like Green Bay to cover. It is a heavy spread. But once again, Green Bay is playing about as good as anybody, and Washington is kind of the opposite. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Green Bay -9.5 hosting the football team.
Yeah, this is one of these as good as the Packers and as well as Rodgers is leading the team. You hate to see it happen against somebody like Ron Rivera. I always want to see nothing but the best for Coach Rivera. At the same time, it's what you just said, the quarterback's just not living up to the billing. So with that being the case, I think that with you, like you said, I believe Green Bay is going to cover the spread, but I might go back down a half a point, take the over under at 48.5, but I can see this being 35-14.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be because the Packers are trying to run it up. But if there are missed tackles, if they pick up a fumble and run it back, if they get an interception and run it back, what are they supposed to do? They're not going to drop down on the 1 yard line. So I can see a lot of points on the Green Bay side of the board. And if Washington happens to score in each half, one time in the end zone each half, that might be what you're going to see. So I do like Green Bay covering the spread under 48.5.
Yeah, and we're getting to that point, late October where, the Packers might only have 3 or 4 more home games that are going to be conducive to overs, just because of the weather. Obviously, if we're going to see a snow game this year, it's more than likely going to happen in Green Bay at some point a little bit later. So I think,
I'll tell you, I let my dogs out at about 5:30, 6 o'clock this morning. Went out in the backyard. I think it was 52 degrees. I'm not playing football.
Yeah.
So, and no, I'm not going to warm up if I start running. I step out, it's 52 degrees. It's like, oh, back in the house, girls. We're not going to do this right now.
Yeah, that is the Southern California factor, though, because I will say if it's 52 on average in Green Bay, I think you're going to see a lot more shirts and flip-flops for those people than you would out here in Southern California. But you know what? We pay a lot for the beautiful weather we have here. So moving on to an AFC East matchup. It is the Jets heading to Foxborough to take on the New England Patriots. The Patriots are 7-point favorites. 42.5 is the over-under. Weather will not be a factor here as well. A heartbreaker last week for the Patriots and, people who had the Patriots plus 3.5. And yes, I will raise my hand on that one. There was only one way to lose that game, and it was a walk-off touchdown. Yes, joy. Yes, I know. It was unbelievable, but it was a rough week betting, but that's what this week's for, to get back on the horse. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? I'll give you the start here. An old AFC East matchup. I feel Bill Belichick kind of looks around and goes, when it's time, when we're struggling, I can always count on the Jets coming to town to kind of right the ship. But what are your thoughts? Jets at New England.
Jets plus 7. I have a feeling this is going to be, there's going to be an upset. You've got the Jet team that has not won a travel game this year. They're 0-3 against a team that, I can't imagine what it's like to be one of those holier than thou Patriot fans that hasn't seen a victory at home this year. It's got to be driving them nuts, and I love it. I think it's great, and I think that's going to continue. 2-4, nobody expected, not even me. I didn't think that this is how they were going to play this year. But what does it tell you? I guess Belichick's plan to take over the world, he's going to have to rethink it, because it's just not happening. And I see them just, I think there's a lot of hesitation, a lot of questioning now. Maybe not from Belichick himself, but his players don't have the confidence. And with that, I think it's just going to be a long game for him this weekend. Let's see, the weather is, you say the weather is no rain, 60 degrees. So, not a factor. But at some point, unfortunately, these two contrasting records, no wins on the road, no wins at home. Somebody's going to have to win this one. So,
yeah, very interesting. Obviously, the Jets have had their struggles. Zach Wilson, I don't think you could have had a worse start to a career. I mean, you could have, I'm sure, statistically, but for a guy who was picked in the top 2 or 3, that there have been a lot of questions. I do believe he's at least made a little bit of progress. You do have to give him a little bit of a slack. It's Saleh there. He's focused on getting the defense together. They do have a good offensive coordinator. Can't think of the top of my head, but it's going to be difficult. It's not a very good team no matter what. And Zach Wilson certainly is not the savior to come in and change everything overnight. I do agree with you, though. I do think this is closer than a 7-point game. May try and buy a half a point to get over, to the 7.5. And for these teams and these matchups, it's kind of odd. They played each other a lot lately. Being division opponents, but it's a lot of different faces now. Obviously, Brady isn't there. And then, for Belichick, it's a new coach, a new quarterback that he has to deal with for the Jets. I do wonder, though, I believe, 42.5 being the over under. As crazy it is, I think this is an under. I think this is 20-17. And it's a kind of a grinded out type of game. Which may actually, I know for a fact, if it is a grinded out type of game, that will favor the Jets. I don't know if they win this game, but I do expect them to cover. And I think the number stays under 42.5, which, once again, one of the lower numbers we will see this entire weekend, but I do like it being under there. So We'll see how that goes. Moving on to the next two games, folks. The spreads are crazy, not out of control, because you definitely know why, but very big spreads for this one. We'll start in Los Angeles at SoFi Stadium. The Detroit Lions head to Los Angeles to face the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are 15-point favorites. The over-under here is 50.5. I'll get this one started. Look, as a rule, I generally don't pick, minus 15. I actually kind of like Detroit, plus 15 here. I know it sounds crazy. I do think a multitude of factors here. The Lions, I don't think are as bad as their 0-6 record suggests. I don't think they're good by any stretch, but this is two crazy kick. This is a team that's two last second field goals, including a 66-yarder, by the way, from being 2-4. Now, once again, not, oh my gosh, look at the Lions, but it's different than the Jaguars. It's different than the Jets. It's different than the Giants, who have been blown out in pretty much every game. The Lions are going across country, but the fact that all eyes for me are going to be on Jared Goff. He wants to prove not only to Sean McVay, not only to the owners and general managers with Los Angeles, but the entire Ram fan base, that he wants to prove for at least 1 week, I will make you regret this trade. And you also compound it with the fact that Dan Campbell, the Lions head coach, came out and straight up said, I need Jared Goff to do more for this football team. And I don't think he's out of line by any stretch. If you would have told me that Trevor Lawrence got his first win before Jared Goff got his first win as a Lion, I would have told you you're crazy. And that's what we're looking at right now. Once again, I don't think this team is as bad as 0-6. I don't think this team is very good, but I think they cover, or they at least stay within the 15. In terms of the over under 50.5, I like the under. Once again, in my mind here, this is kind of Detroit turns this into kind of a gritty game. We see a 28-17, 28-14 game, and we stay under. And once again, I think Detroit, can cover. Not really a competitive game, but something that, you're always one defensive play away from it being interesting. We'll see how that goes. So once again, I like Detroit plus 15 and under 50.5. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Detroit's close, which doesn't get you anything in the standings. They're still 0-6, and they haven't won on the road. They haven't won at home. They haven't won anywhere. And the Rams, they had the one hiccup, but who'd they have that hiccup against? The best team in football right now. So you take that with a grain of salt as well. But 15, that's just too much. I've said it for 3 weeks in a row. I hate these double-digit spreads as it is. And we're not just getting one a week. We're getting several a week. I do like Detroit as well to cover on it. I think it's going to go over, though, because I can see this ending up 28-24. And there you are. That would take care of business for everybody. Maybe, who knows, maybe it ends up 35-24. But I think there's going to be points out there, and I think you're right. Goff's going to come in and say, okay, you let me go, huh? Let me show you what you gave up. Yeah,
exactly.
So it's going to be a good game. It would be an interesting game to watch. Just from that, okay, here we go. The guy they released against the former team, that's always a good angle on any game. But yeah, the Rams will get the victory. I just don't think they're going to cover.
Yeah. And if 15 points wasn't enough for you, let's move on to possibly the biggest mismatch of the season. I don't think there's any doubt that Arizona has to be considered the best team in the league. They're 6-0. They have taken care of everybody in their way and did it very impressively last week against Cleveland on the road. They are facing Houston, who's another team, as we talked about earlier, a team that's been put into a difficult situation. Like I said, I believe they're handling it the right way in professionalism, not maybe so much in terms of competitiveness, but Arizona is 18.5 point favorites here. The over-under here is 47.5. Now the line did open up at 14.5. So once again, this could be a 3 touchdown spread by Sunday when this goes off, and you normally see those ever outside of college football. But it's going to be very interesting here. 18.5 points. I'm not playing it either way because I could see it. I could see Arizona winning by 3-4 touchdowns in this game, to be honest. Arizona at home. This team cannot be stopped, and they're obviously going to have Zach Ertz. I know it's not like the biggest deal in the world, and I may be a little biased, but I do think that is a big pickup for them. If at the very least it ties up a linebacker, ties up a safety, that's going to have to cover Zach Ertz. He's another guy to have to deal with, and guess what? There are plenty of options there for the Cardinals. Houston, I will say, they've struggled. I was kind of impressed with what they did against New England. I don't think New England's, a team that everybody's going to jump on board on and say fantastic stuff, but they were within a field goal of beating New England, didn't get it done. I understand that. Horseshoes and hand grenades, and in football, it doesn't really matter unless you're betting, but 18.5, way too much for me to go against. In terms of 47.5, I'm actually going to go with the over here. I think Arizona puts up plenty of points. Houston will do just enough, maybe put up 14, 17 points. I could see Arizona putting up 35, 40. We get a 41-17 game, and we get to where we need to go. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on the biggest spread so far of the season? The Houston Texans at Arizona, 18.5-point favorites.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona's just the team to beat in the NFL right now. They're giving up only, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around couple touchdowns a game, maybe just over a couple touchdowns a game. On the other side of that, Houston's given up almost 30 points a game. So for the spread to be 18.5, I'm not going to touch it because I don't like that big of a spread anyway. The over-under, though, is a head scratcher because I think it's just going to come down to Houston's not going to score. I can see Houston getting a couple field goals out of this one and not much more than that. And Arizona might be kind to the little kid on the block and only run up 5 touchdowns. So I'll go under on that, and I'm not going to touch the spread. But yeah. Arizona's going to walk out of this one 7-0, no problem.
Yeah, this is a game we might see some backups in very, very earlier than normal here. I will say the one thing I will say about Arizona is, and this is an incredibly pessimistic way to think about things, but it is a situation where, they're one bad play away or one quarterback injury away from not being very good. It is a bit unfortunate. But once again, not touching the spread here, it's going to be very tough for me to do anything like that. 18.5 points, way too much. And like you said, it's going to come down to Houston. How many points is Houston going to score? Because if you can tell me that, I'll tell you about the over-under, because we know what we're going to get at. But if we only get 3 or 6 points from Houston, well, we're not going to get where we need to go. So that is what we got there for that one. Now moving on to a game that we expect to be a little more competitive. Actually, it better be a little more competitive. It's Sunday Night Football. The Indianapolis Colts at the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners are 3.5-point favorites. The over-under is 44. The weather, 60 degrees around. Rain is expected Sunday night in San Francisco. Now, once again, we're recording Wednesday, so that could change. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? San Francisco hosting Indy.
San Francisco, a very disappointing team. And I just say that as a fan. I can't imagine being a fan of the 49ers, but I know several. And they are all, I can't believe that, we're not 4-2 or we're not 5-1, but they just haven't put it together. Another fan base, they have not seen their team win at home yet. They should win this one. -4 though, I would take Indianapolis +4 on this one. Definitely. On the over-under, it's at 44 right now. That could go either way, but I think it will go over. I think it'll go over 44. I think you're going to see something more like you will probably see a 24-21 game, something like that. Just enough to get us over the over. But it's Sunday night, so if you can watch football on Sunday night, you don't complain. Is it one of those, I just can't wait to sit down with my dinner or a beer and watch that? Nope, it really isn't.
It's very similar to last week's game, Seattle and Pittsburgh. It's like, if you have to, sit down and enjoy it. But, you know, if you're a baseball fan, more than likely there's going to be a baseball game on that will get your interest. And one thing I will say, one of the crazier stats I saw when I was getting ready for the podcast, right now, currently, the quarterback with the most the most attempts without an interception is Carson Wentz. And that is incredible to me. Obviously, I will never hold any ill will towards Carson Wentz. I still firmly believe that, you know, I think the Eagles would be in a better spot right now if Carson Wentz was the quarterback. Now, they drafted Jalen Hurts. It is what it is. I've moved on. But to see Carson Wentz doing things that he did in his MVP season, I don't think it's a big surprise because he's been reunited with Frank Reich. There were a lot of people who said the team was never the same, and correctly so. Was it the case? That's for another day, but correctly so. The offense was never the same when Frank Reich left. He has been reunited with him, and it's gone very well for Carson, at least personally. Now, the results haven't come. However, I do believe this is an opportunity for them to get back into it. I think Indy is able to get the job done. I'm going to flirt maybe with the money line, but however, plus 3.5 here. I think San Francisco, you know, they could win this by a field goal. That's fine. Guess what? We still win. The over under being 44, you know, with the rain possibly being there. Look, it complicates things, but I don't think it totally takes everything off the table. Both of these teams prefer to run the football if possible. I'm going to take the under, you know, just for the sake of taking something, but I really like Indianapolis plus 3.5 here from a personal betting side of things. It's going to be very interesting to see how Carson Wentz, or if Carson Wentz can continue this. If he can continue this all season, I think Indy's going to have a chance to make the playoffs. I don't think they have any chance of winning the division now. They're just too deep of a hole. But if they can keep rolling, they have to start now. 2-5 is a lot different than 3-4. And that could possibly be the biggest game right now of their season. And I think it means just a little bit more for Indy. I think they at the very least cover, may get that win. And once again, I'm over here. You know, I have to kind of root against the Colts because I want them to get the highest draft pick available for us, Eagles. You know, once again, it's all about me. It's all about Philly. But, you know, it would be very nice. Yeah, it would be very, very nice to see Carson succeed. Once again, I want to see him succeed, and I think he will. Maybe not to the MVP style or Super Bowl style, but moving on to the final game, it doesn't look like we're going to have Coach with us today, so no problem. We'll break this one down. It is Monday Night Football. The Saints head to Seattle. The Saints are 5-point favorites on the road. Obviously, Tyrod Taylor will start again. And then 43.5 is the over-under. And with the weather, it will be 50. And big surprise in Seattle, rain is expected. Once again, that's, you know, 5 days from now, though, so could change. But for Seattle, I think you could pretty much expect rains coming at some point during that game. But I'll give you the honors, Raider Jim. Final game of the weekend. It is Monday Night Football. What do you got?
Let me tell you, I believe Seattle should be at 3-3 right now. That was devastating what happened at the end of that game the other night. And fantastic defensive play. Don't get me wrong. I'm not taking anything away from the defense, but Seattle was moving the ball, and Seattle was really had played a fantastic second half. I think they're going to come back. They don't lose 3 games in a row, especially at home. So they are 0-2 at home right now. I think, boy, to take Seattle +5, if you want to grab an extra half point, I would do that. And I would go over right now it's at 43. These two teams under 43, it's not going to be the case. This is going to be a great game. This game I'm looking forward to. This is going to be a good game. Rain or shine, it's going to be a good game. But I do think Seattle's going to get on track on this one. Wow, like I say, that was such a heartbreaker the other day at the end. That was just too bad. But I will take Seattle. Seattle's going to be able to move the ball offensively. Give me 5 points in Seattle and give me over the 43.
Yeah, I agree with the over big time. I think we're going to see some points being scored, whether or not, literally whether or not. So it's going to be tough. I'll tell you what, I don't think the offense. Now, I'm not Chris Collinsworth, where I'm going to say, oh, I really couldn't, I really underestimated how important Russell Wilson was to this offense. Like, come on, man, are you serious? Like that's just a ridiculous thing to say from somebody who gets paid a lot of money to talk about and know about football. Year number 3 of Russell Wilson's career, he was a big part of that offense. But Tyrod stepping in, and I think this was the point he was trying to make, but Tyrod stepping in isn't devastating. It isn't, oh my gosh, kind of the opposite in Arizona, where if Kyler Murray goes down, they're done. They're not going to succeed or succeed at a very lower level. Tyrod can get the job done at certain times. He's not going to win you a Super Bowl, but I think for right now, to get you to Russell Wilson being healthy again, I think he can kind of steer the boat calmly through those calm waters. And then when Russell Wilson's ready to go, that's when they kind of get rolling. I agree with you. I think this is a game for Seattle at home, Monday Night Football. This is a very big game for them in that AFC or in that NFC West. They have to keep winning. Obviously, you have the Rams who are doing their thing. You can see the Niners, maybe get a win Sunday night as well. And then obviously the Cardinals don't seem like they're slowing down. So if Seattle wants to think seriously about a playoff, this is a big game right now. They can't fall 3 or 4 games back with Russell Wilson still being out 4 or 5 weeks. So a big game for them. And I think it's a winnable game. I really, really agree with you. I think this is going to be a really fun game. Might be really the best game of the weekend. But yeah, give me the over here, over 43.5. I think we see plenty of points being scored. Seattle, the spread's a little tough here. 5 around that. It's, New Orleans, they're so hit and miss. I mean, we've seen them as arguably the best team in baseball in football, 38-3, dominating the Packers and then getting blown out by the Panthers. So it's hard to see what we're going to get out of New Orleans, but I do really like the over here. I think we're going to see a really fun game on Monday night. And I know Coach will be watching, and we'll get his thoughts hopefully next week on how it all boils down. But that is the slate for week 17. Only 13 games on tap. I believe 6 teams are going to be on buys. Obviously, if you didn't hear yours, you're on a buy if you didn't already know. But Raider Jim, final thoughts for week number 7 as we get deeper and deeper into, as I said, the season that seems to go by in a blink of an eye.
Yeah, final thought. Unfortunately, they have a bye week coming up, but I would be remiss to not give a lot of props and a game ball to this Matthew Wright kid that Jacksonville brought in off the street after we watched the missed field goals by Pittsburgh and all these other missed field goals that I saw. There was one point during the Pittsburgh game, I looked at my girl and I said, you know what? Maybe only one weekend, but I'm pretty sure I got enough left in my leg to do that for, one paycheck and I'm out. But this Wright kid that they brought in off the street, basically, and for him to go in under the pressure and get that team their first win, wow, that was quite a performance, a very good performance. Interestingly enough, I don't know if you have seen this or not, but how about that? The NFL decided to do a drug test on him after the game. I was like, are you kidding me? What? Because the kid went out there and played. Why don't you test the guys that are missing 30-yarders? I mean, that's the guys that probably got something going on. But no, what a fantastic game. Good for him. Okay, so Urban Meyer got the benefits of that, which is too bad, I guess. But good for the kid.
Yeah, I agree. And also too, to literally come off the street and then, hey, hop on a red eye and you got to fight jet lag and you're also going to be playing in what is essentially a soccer field or a soccer pitch, right, if you will. Great for him. For me, what I kind of want to keep harping on is how tough it is to bet NFL football. I mean, the minute you think you have something figured out, the minute you think, oh, this is my walk, this is the one, I'm going to take this one all the way to the bank. You just see these teams, and last week we saw pretty much almost everyone cover, while the last 3 weeks before nobody could cover. And it seems like one of those, it's like a whack-a-mole situation. Like the game is rigged against you, things like that. And I know it's not the case, but there are so many times, like I said, perfect example for myself, Thursday night. I had the Eagles plus 6.5 and under, I think it was 49 or 50. Well, or 52, I should say. It was 26-20 or 28-22. First and goal on the 4-yard line. They come out of a 2-minute warning. Well, Brady's in victory formation. I can only imagine if you had the over 53 or over 52 there, your frustration, because for me, I had the under and I was ecstatic. I thought, I'm going to lose both of these on a field goal right here. Didn't happen. They kneel on it. And conversely, coming in Sunday, the Giants go for a erroneous 2-point conversion that gets you to a push. So not only is it hard to say, this team's going to cover, this team isn't going to cover, these coaches are coming in also and putting in these either meaningless 2-point conversions, or as Nick Sirianni did, they score a touchdown, they're down 28-20. Normally you'd kick the extra point, you're down by 7. He goes, no, we're going to go for 2.
Right.
Once again, it worked out for me. Thank you. But it just adds an extra layer of, God, if it wasn't hard enough. But we are here for you every week to help break it down for you. Hopefully, at least for me personally, get a little bit better this week. But thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the NFL Weekly presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench, but we are first. It is time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to you all very soon. Take care.
Enjoy.